I know the church is true. I know Joseph Smith was a prophet. I know that Jesus is the Christ.
There's some 5-year-old watching this right now who's just in tears because he's being mocked.
Oh, don't cry.
5-year-olds aren't
don't.
watching our shit.
If you're 5, comment below.
You're 5 and your parents give you unadulterated access to the internet. Comment below so we can report them.
We hear that phrase a lot. The church is true. Mm-hmm. And yes, technically, that is accurate. It is true that this church exists.
Let's define what that means.
The Catholic Church is true, right? Islam is true. It is true that those institutions do exist. Yes, that is true. But why do we say that? What do we mean when we say the church is true?
Oh, everyone's looking at me. Okay. Well, I think what we're trying to say is that we have the restored gospel of Jesus Christ, right?
Yes.
Like the church that Christ established that fell into apostasy has been restored, and we have the fullness of the gospel. But that is not to say that we have a monopoly on truth. Not at all, by any means.
What's interesting about the word truth is like doing a study of philosophy, you know, then it just gets so...
Let me stroke my beard.
Yeah, it gets so confusing because then you talk about epistemology and the creation of truth and what makes a truth to one person compared to another.
Yes.
And then I was reading this article about... I'm doing a study about a Spanish author named Jorge Luis Borges, and he talks a lot about this idea that about reality, and he's like, you know, when you have a dream about something, are you really just having a glimpse into another dimension? And what if we're just the dream of somebody else's thing? And it just goes on and on and on. And it's just this idea of like, how can we know? So we could go on and on and on about these philosophical ideas.
Inception.
It's only when we wake up that we realize something was actually strange.
You know, but what I love about the church's description of truth is that, okay, you could go on and on about XYZ, but like your body's here, I'm here. You know, and like David's here. And you could argue that he's not because of some philosophical term or whatever, but he just is. And I think that's what I love about the gospel is like we believe God exists, that he just does. He has a body, he's real. That Jesus Christ has a body, he's real. And that they talk to the prophet who leads this church.
Justin, I won't lie. I missed the first part of what you said because I zoned off. Mm-hmm. So I have no idea what that was built upon. But it sounds right.
Because you talk about epistemology and the creation of truth and what makes a truth to one person compared to another. Well, so I can say it again.
I agree with you.
That's just what I like. I just feel like if you're atheist, it's really easy to get lost in philosophy.
Yeah.
And
existential dread.
Yes.
Lots of existential dread.
But that's what I think is cool. When we say the church is true, I think it's a statement of this idea that truth does exist. We believe it exists, and those truths bring us happiness.
Yeah, I think we're saying that we are what we claim to be.
Mm-hmm.
The church in which Jesus Christ has sole and complete authority over. And that is the truth. That is the nature of our church. So that's what we mean when we say the church is true.
Right.
We don't mean that everything that someone says in the church is true. I could go I can go to the pulpit and say, space aliens created Oprah Winfrey. Like, no. Is that a true statement? It's not a true statement, right?
You don't know that.
I mean, theoretically. The hosts of heaven do live outside of our world.
Somebody in the
comments,
aliens, you believe it too?
Well, I mean, theoretically, that was true, right?
Right.
Somebody's going to get on and be like, well, Brigham Young actually did believe there were people living on the moon, which did happen, but that's another story.
But that's about, that's more of a testimony of the Great Moon hoax and not Brigham Young.
Indeed.
Anyway, so what's next? Are we proclaiming that every other religion is false? Yeah, but not in a bad way. We don't make,
every church out there, like I'm confident that I could find some form of truth in every church that's out there, whether it's, Islam or Scientology or Jehovah's Witness, whatever it may be. We've all got shards of the truth.
Anytime you do anything Christ-like, That is like an aspect of truth, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I frequent the religious internet sphere quite a bit. I'm subscribed to a number of channels of different faiths and stuff, and everyone thinks that they're right. But we're the only ones called upon to say that we're not. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm subscribed to so many YouTubers. I read so many articles from other Christians and Jews and Muslims who say, this is what we believe is true. But when we say we believe we're the true church, they only ever say, and by the way, though, Mormons can't just claim they're the only true church. Even though everyone believes that, we're the only ones, and maybe the Catholics. Us are the only ones constantly called to, like, you cannot say you're the only true church. But why can't we say that?
Right.
Why can't we? We have every right to. And I think it's even nicer because we don't believe that everyone who's not a member of our church is going to go to hell. Yeah. So, like, a lot of faiths believe they're the only ones who are right and everyone else is going to hell. We don't even believe that, but, like, we're the bad guys, I
love how, like, everyone's just like, cult, you guys, follow Joseph Smith. And you're like, so what happens if you don't join our cult? You go to heaven. What happens if I don't join yours? Eternal punishment, suffering, pain.
Yeah.
Okay, we're the cult. All right, that's great.
Well, I talked to a guy.
No, that's true.
I talked to a guy who said that any religion that doesn't believe in the Trinity is a cult. And I was like, so, there's a lot of religion that goes, yeah, they're all cults. It's like, okay, dude, I'm not quick to throw around the word cult, but if you believe everyone is in a cult except for you, you're probably the one who's actually in a cult. You know what I mean? Like, that's weird.
Process of elimination.
So the phrase, I know the church is true, like, is there a worthy substitute that would, like, leave less questions that you think we could use?
I believe this is Jesus Christ.
Ooh,
Church.
you said something important there. You said, I believe. That I believe instead of I know. Is that a bad thing? Because everyone's saying I know.
I think belief is more powerful than knowledge.
I agree.
I love saying a testimony movie. I love saying at testimony meeting, I believe.
Right.
Or I truly believe, or I really believe, because I know that I should save money and I don't. I know I should eat healthy and I don't. I know I should text people back and I don't, my producer. I know, right? But when I believe I should do those things, that's when the action happens, right? I believe I should eat healthy, so I do. Once you believe something, you begin to act it out. Knowledge, what does knowledge do? It stays in your head. Yeah. That's why the Spirit speaks to you through your heart,
Right.
Because heart is belief and action, but knowledge just kind of stays there.
Right. It doesn't lead to faith.
No.
Very rarely has knowledge led to faith actions. It's almost always a belief and a hope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Spirit speaks to you both, right? Like mind and heart, but never just the mind. Sometimes it feels like just the heart, but right. I don't find that it's ever just the mind. At least in my experience, it's always the mind and the heart, but heart is always, I feel, first.
Right. I feel like knowledge is necessary. I feel like the more knowledge you have, the more God has to work with.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I feel like that's why, because knowledge is light, and so you should be working to gain more knowledge, but that just gives you more ability to believe.
And the more knowledge you have, the more Satan has to work with, too.
That's true.
Knowledge can be a dangerous
knowledge
thing.
Is power, and power is scary.
And scary is the shadow of the dark side.
Use my knowledge, I beg you.
Okay.
Wait, let me find this really
anger
important.
leads to fear, and fear leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
The shadow of the dark.
Wait, I'm going to find this really important.
Wait, what are you doing?
This is a really important quote because
okay, cool.
we went to the second one, back to the first one, but the second one is,
But yeah, you're looking that up. One thing I think that is a good alternative to saying that I know the church is true is saying that you believe it's whole or complete. Just like the phrase "perfect" in the church, everyone misunderstands that perfect just means whole and complete, and I think that's also we believe the church is perfect in the sense that we have everything it needs.
Everything required for
for exaltation.
Yeah.
And that's another thing.
Thank you for saying exaltation instead of salvation.
Yeah, and see that's another interesting thing is that I feel like people get those words confused so often is that if other people understood that we believe we are the only church that has all the teachings necessary to be exalted. Mm-hmm. We don't believe we're the only church that has everything necessary to make it to heaven.
Yeah, because we're essentially all
saved. And this is this is the thing to me that's so interesting. I talked to people. I went and spoke with a bunch of students from Scottsdale Christian Academy, and they were asking. They're like, "So why don't you believe we're going to heaven?" I was like, "I do." I just believe that if you don't, accept the fullness of the gospel, you will not be in the celestial kingdom. And they're like, but, like, that's heaven. I was like, yeah. And so I asked, what do you believe? They told me what they believe. They believe they'll be with Jesus and the Spirit and God. And so I asked, but are Jesus and God the same person? He goes, well, we believe they're different, but we believe that God is everywhere. So I said, okay, so you don't believe that you'll be, like, physically looking at God the Father, right? Because he's everywhere. Like, yeah. So you're going to go to heaven. By the way, you don't believe you're going to become a god. They don't believe that.
Right.
So they don't believe they'll be gods. They don't believe that their marriage is going to be forever, or that they're going to be creating children or anything. So they just go to heaven. They'll be with Jesus and the Spirit, and the influence and presence of God is everywhere. It's like, well, that's literally what you're getting in the terrestrial kingdom.
Well, that's what you have right now.
Yeah, like
because like if the God influences everywhere, then technically you're in the presence of God right now. So
Yeah.
does that make this heaven?
So, well, it's just they were offended that we believe that we're going to go somewhere, honestly, better, what God's prepared. But what they believe is the best thing, we already believe that they're gonna get. You know what I mean?
No, that's a good point.
And so, again, we do believe that we are the only church that has the authority. But this is what the first presidency said in 1978, February 15th. The great religious leaders of the world, such as Muhammad, Confucius, and the reformers, as well as philosophers, including Socrates, Plato, and others, received a portion of God's light. Moral truths were given to them by God to enlighten whole nations and to bring a higher level of understanding to individuals. That's important. So, yes, we believe that, I think it's fair to say that a theory I would like to propose, a theory I am proposing, not saying the church, but me, is that, yes, other religions do have false teachings, right? And Satan might inspire a number of things, but God uses it for his benefit and can make anything work for his good, and he still loves those children of that religion and can make sure that truth and light gets to them. So the Quran has many true teachings, right? Mm-hmm. Even the New World translation of the Bible, the Jehovah's Witness Bible, has many good teachings, right? We don't have to necessarily believe those things are given by God to appreciate the things that they espouse, because the people who are in those faiths are good people. They have good hearts, right?
And I don't think that having false teachings necessarily even means that your religion is false. I mean, that's what the apostles were doing in the early Christian churches. They were going around the church correcting these false teachings that had sprung up in the church. But I do think it is about authority.
Yeah. Obviously, God understands that finding out eternal truth is not necessarily the easiest thing. So he's going to cut you some slack and be understanding on the way.
I think that everyone that says, in testimony meeting or in their talks, when they say, I know the church is true, of course they have like great intentions. And I'm sure that some of them actually do know the church is true. But I do think that there's a stigma that if you don't say that, there's something wrong.
Right.
And I would like to see that change. I would like to see more people say, I believe, if that's where they're at. And that's where I think the vast majority of us are at. And that's where Christ asks us to be. He doesn't ask for knowledge. He asks for faith and for belief. And so that is one thing that I would like to see change.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, language is important, right?
Definitely.
So a lot of people, when they say they know the church is true, that they mean they believe the church is true, right? The word know, I have knowledge of the authority of the church is essentially what people are saying.
Right.
So, but they mean I believe that, right? So it's not, I don't think people are really saying like, I don't have a shadow of a doubt at all. I know this in the same way I know that this chair is here. I mean, like, no one has perfect knowledge in this life. Honestly, just in the Mountain West religious culture, we use the word know in place of where other people use the word believe. It's just sort of a colloquial language difference.
Yeah.
And it confuses people.
It does confuse new people coming in like, whoa, wait, what do you mean? It's honestly, that's a big culprit. Language is also the biggest culprit when it comes to speaking with other religions too, because we use words differently.
Definitions.
That's why multiculturalism is a good thing, and diversity is good because it helps you understand other people. This is a sociological lesson I'm teaching people now.
Oh gosh. I have no authority in this.
So I think it's fine if you want to say that. I think we should avoid vain repetitions. Just saying it just because we say it, or like this. I feel like stuff like that is the same thing as the word
Yeah.
It's a filler. You don't know what to say, so you just go, and I know this church is true.
Yeah.
And, you feel it. So I think that's just a general, like, let's just avoid things that are unintentional.
It's almost like if it shows up in, that 6-year-old's testimony,
Right.
as cute as it is, like it showed up there because that's just the thing that they've heard over and over and over
Right.
again. And that might be an
Yeah.
indicator that things are being just repeated and not
Right.
meant so much.
So I think we should be, when we're using any kind of religious language, I think we should be very intentional
Yeah.
about what we say and why we say it, and it'll
Yeah.
clear up a lot of things, and I think it'll just make testimony meetings a lot more spiritual, and it'll help you be a little more aware of what you believe as...
And it's liberating to get to that point where you're like, you know what? I don't care what you think. This is my belief. And it's not something that I know yet. And owning that I think it's freeing to yourself, and I think it's healthy for your testimony, and I think it's especially healthy for the other people out there in the congregation that are like, you know what? He just said believe. And that's okay.
Yes. Well, guys, subscribe, like, comment below all the things you do for the show, because my name's Kwaku L, and I have to not go to hell because I believe in heaven. Hey, did you mention my name's Kevin? My name's Kevin. That's a name. That's a translation. I don't
Stop
know
while you're
what it
ahead.
is.
Stop while you're ahead.
You were doing really good.
Yeah,
I didn't even mean for it
Good.
to rhyme.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Colby Farron could do it better than I could.